Good evening, you guys, and welcome back to another live stream here at Sergeant Tank Pets on the YouTube channel. Tonight, we're going to be going over something that's brought up here and there when I've been on other live streams in regard to a breeder's award program through like a local fish club. So we'll be spending some time this evening. I'll be showing you guys a few outlines through our own club and some few key points that go along with that. So hopefully you guys can sit back and enjoy and find this informative. So you can check out our repertoire of videos with regard to the importance of joining a local club if you have one in your area. So I have covered that in great detail, and I've even covered the Breeders Award program and HAP in a previous live stream as well, so you can also check that out. We'll go ahead and try to link that in the description below for you guys. So want to appreciate everybody for hopping on here on another impromptu live stream. I had noticed that it was set for private and not for public because my default settings in YouTube are set for private. So unfortunately, the notification didn't go out until about 15 minutes ago. Not that notifications really do that great for anybody anyways here on the platform, but better late than never, I suppose. So I will ensure next time that it's set for private. But we have Devin Peppers first in the chat. We got Victor V-Stag, Beta Lover, hello. We got Valley Fish. Always nice seeing you, buddy. So we'll give it a few minutes here. Feel free to go ahead and like and share if you enjoy this content. It definitely helps us out as creators, considering I haven't shared it out. So I want to appreciate everybody, as always, as they join. And if you guys have any questions right now for me, you can feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. So we'll give it 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll go ahead and start talking about the Breeders Award program. We got LRB Aquatics in the house. How you doing, Lucas? Bat. So I will go over a few things with regard to myself when it comes to BAP, and more importantly, I really want to try to really drive home the importance of a local aquarium club. The last few live streams I've done have more or less been kind of geared around that, and I kind of want to create that trend because I don't think it's talked about enough with regards to the importance of clubs. You can always check out Scott and Elizabeth over at King and Queen Cichlids. They do a phenomenal job. Scott himself actually created his own club a few years back, so you can always check out King and Queen Cichlids. And I want to say a couple of videos ago, he talked about and went over some of that in greater detail. So I definitely encourage you guys to branch out. You know, I'm not the only one here on YouTube, of course, that covers it, but I just figured if I can give you guys some visual aids and a little bit more hands-on perspective and kind of show you some different areas with that and really get your minds kind of thinking about, hey, maybe this may be something that you're interested in. Maybe it would be an appropriate time at that point as far as, you know, the hobby for you that you're ready to pursue and kind of take things to the next level. Breed Award program are fun. Hope all is well, Sarge. Yes, Lucas, thank you so much. They definitely are. How you been, brother? Kang Lee said, I am hanging in there, man. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you for asking. I hope that you've been well. We'll miss you guys at Aquashella coming up here this month in Illinois. Unfortunately, just not going to be able to make it this time, but we'll see, you know, and for next year. And some other things I wanted to mention as well as we kind of let some folks join us here is with regard to the way I do my live stream formats. If you guys have been following me for any period of time, especially when I first started on the platform over 2 years ago, as far as with videos and that, is I started out doing live streams and then sometimes I will re-edit those live streams. And that's the way the format has been. And I find that people really enjoy it. So basically, what would happen at the conclusion of this live stream in the next day or two, I'll go ahead process this. I'll go ahead and edit it down to just the pertinent information based on the title and description, and then I'll go ahead and re-upload it, with offering you guys the opportunity to still view this in its entirety as an unlisted URL link down in the description of that specific video. So the way I've been playing it out is, let's say today, Thursday, this is a live stream. By the time I get to it and re-upload it, because I am still behind with doing that with other live streams. There's a couple of different reasons. I'm not going to go into all of those right now. Maybe someday I'll share it, but right now the easiest way I can put it is I'm testing different things right now. I guess I'll just put it that way. So as long as the retention and the views are there and I'm seeing that people enjoy it, that's the most important thing, then I'll continue to do it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. You know, I would much rather watch a 10 or 12-minute video rather than, you know, an hour or two live stream. You know, most people don't have time to watch, you know, a 2-hour live stream, and your attention just can't. I know for me personally, it just with kids and stuff like that, it's really difficult. So that's why I do that, if anybody was wondering. See here, we got in the house. Awesome. I definitely encourage you guys to share. You know, encourage each other to help each other out. If I miss anything, that's why we have moderators here, that they're able to, and other people here in the chat. So anybody new, I definitely appreciate it. And anybody lurking, I appreciate it. I'm definitely one of those. I'll be the first one to admit. So just because you don't see me actively, maybe like I used to be very, very active, you know, a year and a half or so back in a lot of the live streams, it's not that I fell off the planet. Chances are I'm most likely lurking in the background, as a lot of us do, on the platform, which is completely fine. So what I'm most concerned with is that you guys enjoy it and you can really take something away from it. So while we're still waiting here a few minutes before I kind of get this show on the road, is anybody that is familiar with the BAP, anybody that has specific questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in there now. Then what I can do is I can kind of, as I go through and do some screen shares and show you some different key points here live, I can go ahead and address some of those things so it doesn't sound too redundant where I have to come back to it later on. So if there's any specific questions right now that you want me to point out, I'll try to do that visually here in a couple of minutes. We got Andrew Bukowski in the house. How you doing, buddy? If you guys haven't checked it out, I just re-uploaded. Basically the last upload will be next week. So check it out. It's going over some good species, and you can check out the playlist that I created specifically for that right here on this channel. Do the fish need to be a certain age or size? Yes, I will be covering that as well. So what I'm going to do is take notes, and I don't have a staff. Maybe someday. It'll be a long, long time. It's very dry sense of humor. Let's see here. Age, size. All right, so that's a great question. I will be covering that. But yeah, any other ones, keep just kind of rambling them off, and I'll keep taking notes. Because once I get into doing the screen share and I start walking through, I'm not going to pay much attention to chat until I get back. So, but yeah, anything that you guys have BAP'd if you are part of a club. And some people might hear BAP and they'll be like, what are you even talking about? What does that even mean? And that's where I hope that, you know, there is some folks that don't understand it or even understand what it means, that I can try to provide a little bit of inspiration. I had one question, but it's not about the topic. But anyways, my question is, what type of driftwood would you recommend using for bristlenose plecos? And is cholla wood any good. Yeah, I mean, either one of those, a cholla wood will essentially be typically cut into smaller pieces. When it comes to most ancestral species, specifically the bristlenose, as I've talked about before, you can use a Mopani driftwood. You can use other related softwoods. And that type of stuff. But yeah, I cover that in quite a bit of detail in the past, so I don't want to go into all of those key points. But really, any good source of fiber that you can get in their diet is very critical. So you can also add some Indian almond leaves or catappa leaves as well. They provide a good antibacterial properties as well as antifungal and a good portion of nutrients and tannins in the tank as well, because they will also graze on those. And what I really enjoy about the catappa leaves is the time for which they actually break down. So they last for quite some time, and shrimp love them as well. No local clubs for me, so not sure about anything BAP. So this is good. All right. Can you bring fish in that bred all on their own without any effort from me? So that's another great question. Fish not bred by me. You have some great questions coming in. I definitely appreciate it. We got D down the wormhole. How you doing, D? So yeah, I think we got enough here. You guys ready to rock and roll? We'll go ahead and I'm going to start screen share. I will periodically take a look at chat. And I promise you, just please be patient. I'll try to get through this as fast as I can by providing just the essential information that's necessary, where I feel comfortable enough that you guys can walk away with something, and then hang around, and I will get to you guys' questions once I conclude. We got Joseph in the house. No fish club here, so no BAP here. Got to get off this island. Submitted. I am not going to be able to pronounce that name, but specific Goodyead species. So the Anabanti, all right. I know. I'm sorry, Andy. Now I feel the pain of what others feel when I start rambling off species names. I'm still learning my species names when it comes to Goodyeads. They're definitely tongue twisters. So maybe it's best that I just refer you guys to that playlist so you guys can learn and understand the different species names. Blue tail Goodyead. Okay. Right on. I got no excuses. I'm not even going to try to even make them up. So, all right. Zogoneticus. Man, I can't talk. I think I got that one. I know you're laughing. It's okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up our club that I'm a part of, which is the Grand Valley Aquarium Club here in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. So bear with me here a second. And let's try to get the show on the road. And of course, my mouse doesn't want to cooperate with me, which doesn't surprise me. So if you guys get a little nauseous, you might want to look away here for about 3 seconds. Just bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and pull up here chat. All right. Want to make sure that you guys can see the same screen. Yes, if you're wondering why I have a saltwater clownfish there on my cursor, I just thought it would be appropriate considering we're talking about fish and a little goofy at the same time. So anyway, if you go to gvaquariumclub.org/BAP, this will bring you directly to And you can feel free to follow along as well. I mean, if you really want to get into this, the reason I want to present this is a lot of the same stuff you'll find as you start getting involved, and if you branch out and go to other clubs, is where a lot of this stuff is pretty universal, where you can actually transfer over. And there's some stuff quite a bit that actually isn't shared all here on the site, but this is the criteria for which the Grand Valley Aquarium Club requires, and you would have to be a paid member in order to, of course, be a part of the program. And there's a bunch of different incentives that go along with it, so which we will be covering here. So the first thing here is the purpose. So without going through everything, you guys can read it there as well. More or less, as I was saying, it's to encourage members to get involved into different aspects of ornamental fish breeding, aquatic life, to get a better understanding of knowledge and experience and diversification, the different ways for which one can essentially accomplish, but maybe you might be able to accomplish that same breeding a little bit faster by maybe switching things up. So that's where this information, what you're ultimately doing is logging, and I would encourage you guys to log and take detailed notes when you're breeding to not only water chemistry, anywhere from your pH to your carbonate hardness to your general hardness to your alkalinity, that type of stuff, as much information as you can, because we will be getting into the point of having to actually write an article for that club, and most will require this, specifically our club, in order to obtain the actual award, which we'll get into a little bit later on. And again, it's just showing as far as different accomplishments of different levels for which one, different tiers, it maybe be a better way to look at it, for which one can set a goal and strive to accomplish that goal. And the last one here, just putting emphasis on the importance of getting other individuals within your community involved in participating, because it can be a friendly competition. If you have other friends or other members in the club that you're that you want to just kind of do a friendly competition, that's what it comes down. You encourage one another along the way. We got Dank in the house. How you doing, buddy? All right, so I'm going to come back here to the BAP form. I'm going to go ahead and click on the rules. All right, so these are Sue, where I'm going to end up going in and talking about a couple of the questions that you have as far as age and size in fish that aren't bred specifically by you. Here we're going to spend a little bit more time, because this is the majority of the information that you would need to know, specifically when it comes to how you obtain your points. There's a lot of confusion when it comes to this, and anybody new, if you're not even a part of a club, I can understand the confusion can be even a little bit more confusing. So that's why I want to break it down, try to make it as clear as possible for you guys, so you walk away with a better understanding from when you came in. So the first thing here is each spawn will be awarded 1 point per spawning, regardless of genus or species. So what that means is you have to have a certain amount of offspring at a certain amount of time post hatching. Basically, once they're free swimming is the easiest way to look at it. So you're not getting 1 point per fish that's bagged and you brought in for points to be entered in for the award program. What you have to have And I'm tying this now together, and we'll actually be scrolling down and look at that here. But you have to have 6 fish of that same species. So let's use rainbow fish as an example. Let's say you're breeding some Melitania species. You're going to go ahead, you provide, we're not going to walk through on how to breed. If you guys want to know different aspects of breeding, then check out the last, few live streams I've done, because I cover a lot of that in great detail. I'm just using rainbow fish as an example. Is you have to have obtained and successfully raised 60 days. So I want to make that very clear. It has to be 60 days after they're free swimming. And it has to be 6 of that same species. So let's say you had a brood of 10. Unfortunately, week and 2 goes by, and now you only end up noticing that you have 4 survivors or 6 survivors. Unfortunately, you're going to have to continue to breed to meet that requirement. So you would have to get another spawn, raise those up, again, that 60-day requirement. Because that 60-day is a critical time frame, because for especially a lot of non-live bearing species, take a long time to rear, to raise, to get fattened up enough to go ahead and be appropriate amount of size to go ahead and enter in. And there is some variables in there. Some species really do take a long time, and it wouldn't even be necessarily an ample amount of time, even in 60 days, to feel comfortable enough, I know for myself personally, to be bringing in and providing anything. Because my biggest goal, and I feel that should be for anybody that's doing this program, is to ensure when you're entering this stuff in, once you auction the stuff off, which we will get to, and somebody else now acquires that, you want to make sure that they have success and not have failures. So if you're bringing in something that is quite sensitive due to the fact that it still really needs to develop more size and age, then I would suggest and encourage you to go ahead and hold off until it's appropriate to do that. So a certificate will be awarded upon accumulation of 10 points. So what that means is, again, using that rainbow fish as an example. So once you've entered in and it's been approved through the through that committee or through the designated chairman of the BAP program, and now you went ahead and entered it in. Again, it has to be 6, at least 60 days old, and then you can go ahead and now obtain 1 point for that bag of fish. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here. It's not 1 point per fish of that same species. So hopefully that makes sense. And to receive each award requires 1 article to be turned into the GVAC editor. So again, if you are a paid member of the Grand Valley Aquarium Club, what we require as a club is you to submit an article, usually by, I would say, October, November at the latest of each year, based on a certain breeding of species. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, you have to submit it in order to actually receive the award, because you really want to validate your success. And validating your success is not just bringing in a bag of fish, especially if you're breeding multiple species. It's really trying to encourage the member of the club to start sharing some of that knowledge and that experience with other folks, through something such as an article. And plus, you can feel honored that your information would be considered to even be entered into an article. A lot of people would pride themselves in that. So that's also an awesome opportunity as well. And it's just reiterating, Each article must be suitable for publication on aquarium-related topic. Article turn-ins must be up to date in order to qualify for special awards. And then it goes through the breakdowns and the tiers, as we talked about a little bit earlier on, as far as certificates or plaques be awarded to breeders in the following categories. So breeder level 1, basically this is the beginner level, is another way to look at it. So anywhere from 1 to 40 points, you would still be in that first tier. The expert breeder tier is anywhere between 50 and 90 points. The master breeder tier would be anywhere between 100 and 300 points. And the grandmaster tier would be anywhere between 350 and 400 points. So yes, very simple math. You're probably thinking to yourself, Jeremy, you're telling me I need to breed 50 different species of at least 6 of that same species in order to get myself into an expert breeder? Absolutely. It takes years for people to actually get to these tiers. Some people have more aggressive goals than others. We had one individual in our club, which I've talked about many occasions, in 1 year, many years back, 79 species. And these aren't live bears. These are difficult species to breed. 79 species in 1 year. Takes a record. Imagine thinking you don't sleep as it is, and most of us don't, of course, as aquarists. Imagine trying to put the time into in an 8x11 room smaller than that. Yes, you heard me right. Literally an 8x11 room. Breeding for many, many years, dating back to the 60s. Ever since this individual was a child, at the age of about 10 or 12 years old, really getting hardcore into breeding and documented close to 600 species, if not 700 at this point. It takes years upon years of time and dedication to stay committed for that long. Not everybody is committed, but it's something I know as an aquarist that I strive for when I get later in life. To be able to achieve something even close to that or even half that would be an awesome opportunity. So the special awards here is no fish may be entered for a special award that has not also already been BAP. So yes, that is another criteria that oftentimes is overmissed. You have to keep in mind that most of these species that have been entered in, I have databases going back until the mid-70s, and chances are whatever you're obtaining has already been through that process. I'm not going to go too much into that. There is exceptions in that, but that's really kind of getting way off topic. So let's just try to stick to don't let this one don't get hung up on this or let it discourage you. So the Rookie of the Year is an award given to a breeder award program participant who successfully spawns and BAPs the most fish in a 12-month from January through December of a given year. The award will be given, which we have a Christmas party on the second Saturday of each December. For us, each club may be different in how they go about doing this. This is the way ours does it. We'll include only those participants who eligibility ends at the end of the year. All participants of any age are eligible for the Rookie of the Year award. In case of a tie, those tie will each receive an award, which is nice. So it's not like a coin toss. Or a coin toss, I'm sorry. Members are eligible for Rookie of the Year until they receive their first award, 10 spawn plaque, Rookie of the Year, Breeder of the Year, etc. The Breeder of the Year and award will be given to the participant who has the highest BAP Breeders Award Program point total in any given calendar year. The award will be given at the Christmas party in case of a tie, and then just reemphasizes what I already mentioned. And now the Diversification Award. I'm actually going to come back to the Diversification Award here in a few minutes. So continue BAP rules and program definitions. I'm just going to reiterate some of the other things I've already pointed out. A fish may only be turned in once for points by any one participant. Both species and subspecies of a fish in the genus that are recognized as naturally occurring are accepted and given full points. So if you guys have been following along in other live streams where I talked about this, you will know and most likely recall that once you BAP'd a specific species of fish, that you cannot re-enter that into BAP. That will forever be on your record. The name of the fish scientifically is recognized as a genus. So kind of look at that as a family. The species and subspecies. A subspecies, as accepted by the BAP committee, is naturally occurring population different from another subspecies only in color and geographic location. Subspecies is recognized by the BAP program as those found in publications acceptable to the BAP chairs. If the scientific community later recognizes the fish subspecies to be truly different species, or the taxonomic names are changed, and BAP committee will reclassify each animal appropriately. So what they're saying there is, if it comes to be later on in time that there is any mix-ups, for another way to look at it, there is an opportunity to actually go through and then have that reclassified. And on the flip side of that, if you end up turning something in and it's too small, and really you're taking, in a sense, we know how things can change before our own eyes. We've all been there where we feel in our gut, 100%, and we get something at juvenile size and realize, hey, wait a minute here, this isn't specifically that exact species. So keep that in mind as well. I mean, if things came back, which usually doesn't happen, but I'm just mentioning that there's always opportunity where any discrepancies that would tie into that as well will go ahead and at some point be addressed. All fish must be registered by scientific name. If you know that the scientific name has changed recently, add all previous names to the BAP report that used to be called by. Again, already talked about this, but it's just mentioning as far as eggs must be obtained from your own spawn and not purchased from another outside. So that ties into the question there with regard to the fish not being bred by yourself. So yes, you have to, not only with you can't just obtain some eggs and then hatch them out and consider that. That's not the way it works. The whole purpose is from start to finish. So you would have to obtain the fish, you would have to spawn that fish, and then go ahead and BAP it. So hopefully that makes sense. Pretty straightforward there. Any paid member is eligible to participate in the program. Each spawn would be worth 1 point regardless of difficulty. To receive points for a fish, 6 fry at least 60 days post-hatch must be auctioned at either the monthly meeting or any GVAC auction. So what they're saying is, in order to be eligible to actually submit this for your points, you have to auction it off. And if you want to do a full donation to the club or your split ratio, whatever that is, with ours, it's a 70-30. So we, as members, get a 70%, the club gets 30%. Each spawn must be registered by filling out a BAP report or a BAP form that is signed by a participant witness and turned into one of the BAP chairspersons, which I talked a little bit about earlier on. The participating members are responsible for obtaining, completing, turning in all forms required for participation. Transferring a BAP species is permitted. Each BAP species is worth 1 point. Awards will not be given for transfer points to achieve awards. Disputes will be settled by a BAP committee with whom the final authority resides. We'll talk about transferring of BAP points here in a few minutes. Let's go back up here to that form. So let me go back here to the BAP form. So this is what the forms look like here through our club, which may be similar to other clubs. This is for the HAP program. Here's for the BAP program. So you essentially use the same here, and then these are your different through vegetative, flowering, and sexual. So I'm not going to get into HAP. I'll do a different live stream on HAP in the future. But the BAP is where you would put your first and last name, the species name here on this line, common name, the date, and then this would be date and witnessed again by that chairman, and then also initialed with a witness. And then you could donate if you wanted to. So pretty self-explanatory there. All right. Hopefully you guys are kind of following along and finding this somewhat interesting. Anybody that's kind of hanging out, I definitely appreciate it. Please be patient. I will get to you guys' questions. Of course, I always allow a certain amount of time after the conclusion of the topic in order for you guys to ask me any type of general related fish keeping or aquarium related questions. All right, so transferring of BAP points from another club to club's program. So all species are transferable to the GVAP program as they apply to our point system. So just putting emphasis again on the areas for which we covered. The participant is responsible for obtaining their own records from previous clubs, programs, chairperson with that person's phone number, email address, so they can just verify it. In order to receive awards for transferring points, the correct number of articles must be turned in for possible publication. These articles may be ones previously written. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Previously written for other publications by the participant. Transfer points do not apply towards Breeder of the Year or Rookie of the Year diversification or diversification award. Transfer points do not apply toward book points. All right, so let's see. Let's go back here to BAP rules. Cover a little bit as far as diversification. And then I'll get back to the chat here. Let's see. All right. So diversification award. What this is an award given to a participant who Breeders' Award Program or BAPT for your points, at least one species from each of the following categories, which is a cichlid, a catfish, a goby, a live bear, killifish, a kerrison, anabantid, and a rainbow fish. So that's very important to understand each one of those. And then regular BAP rules are to be followed. So it doesn't change the BAP rules and criteria. And an article turn-in must be up to date to qualify, excuse me, to qualify for this award. So pretty self-explanatory there. I would say the biggest one that individuals get hung up on is this one of anything I can drive home is in order to receive points, you have to have at least 6 fry, at least 60 days old post-hatch. They cannot be eggs that you obtain from somebody else. It has to be an actual fish that you raised up. You spawn that fish, you obtain the eggs from that fish, raise them up in order to obtain this criteria. Same thing, obviously, with live bears, so on and so forth. All right, so any questions for me right now while I have the screen up before I take the screen down and put it back on me? Any specific questions that you want me to reiterate? I'll give it about a minute. Devin, I will get to your question here in just a couple of minutes, so hang tight. Jeffro, I'm not sure if you so BAP is Breeders' Award Program. That's what BAP stands for. Hi, we got Michael in the house. How you doing, buddy? All right. So Fishman, Mr. D, hello. Okay. Doesn't look like I want to make sure I allow enough time for my delay here that I have in chat. So do say tetras all get grouped into one species or barbs, for instance? Okay, we will talk about that, Pam. So give me just a couple of minutes here. My hyacinth is the biggest bapper I know. I will go over, if you guys are curious, on some of the stuff that just from this year that I bapped. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop screen share. All right, I think we're good to go. I'm going to close out all these extra tabs I don't need. I'm scrolling back up in chat, and I'm going to start working my way back down here. All right, so Devin is wondering, what fish would you recommend starting out with breeding with regard to the program? So, of course, live bears is a common one that a lot of individuals get into because eventually you are going to run out of certain species, especially based on availability, right? So, depending on your market, which most markets are going to be able to have some sort of live bears there for you. But keep in mind the Poecilia reticulata, which is a common guppy variety. If you that is your species, there's there's your genus, there's your species. So Poecilia reticulata, and now let's say you have a panda guppy variety or whatever variety of color morph that may be. You cannot bring in another guppy of a different color variety and consider that a different species. It's not. It's still Poecilia reticulata with a different color variety. No different than your Neocaridina devidi or Neocaridina heteropoda, so on and so forth. The same thing is it doesn't change the species. It's changing the different color variety based on the way through selective breeding, that type of stuff. So a lot of people get hung up on that thinking, hey, I got 100 different guppies, all different colors. Yes, I understand that. That is just a different color morph. People have line bred certain species together in order to obtain that different color morph. So, and that does happen with other genus and species, throughout the platform. But yeah, so don't let that confuse you. That's why it takes a long time. It takes years to be able to get to a point. I mean, even if you bat 5 in 1 year, don't be hard on yourself. Even if it's one, I encourage you to start out. You got to start somewhere, even if it's one fish. And I do want to put emphasis and just reiterate and practice what I preach. Is when you start out fish keeping, I wouldn't recommend that you get right into it. I understand different different levels as far as comfort based on that person's previous experience. So there is different factors there, and I get it. I definitely do. I always encourage a beginning aquarist, and if you've been out of the hobby for a lot of years, taking a hiatus, which is fine. We've all been there. We all go through it. Is to enjoy it for a year and a half or two before you start getting overwhelmed with taking on the responsibility of breeding and then trying to figure out what you're going to do with all the fish after you breed them. So it can get quite overwhelming because we all put the amount of time and care for our pets that we keep. I mean, every one of us just doesn't keep it. I mean, especially anybody hardcore here in the community that watches YouTube channels based around fish keeping and talks about it all day, every day, every second of the day if we could. There's not anybody here in the chat that wouldn't, nerd out, every day, all day talking about fish. So we all have the same goals and all, the same desires, and that's to keep our fish healthy and thriving. All right, so lost that question here. All right, so 54 punchy, as far as tetras and barbs, you have to realize that there's different species of a tetra. So I have an emperor tetra, I got black emperor tetras, which I'm breeding right now. There's lots of different species of tetras. So each genus and each species would classify. Another way to look at it is um, another, not loophole, but let's say you have a collection point or a species based out of a certain locality, a certain origin, a location, and it's out of a different streamway, not even, connecting waterways, that type of stuff. Again, there's exceptions based on certain waterways and that type of stuff. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But I'm not trying to get hung up on a lot of that extra details, because a lot of this I'm really just trying to promote for people who have never even heard of the program and individuals that really haven't gotten much into the program. But the main thing is to ask. I mean, if you're part of a club, I encourage you to ask one of the specifically the individual who handles and runs as a chairperson for your club based on that specific program. You can always ask the president of the club. You can ask the VP. You can check with anybody, any board member part of the club. Somebody can get the answer for you if you ever have a question based on a specific species. Just explain to them what you're trying to do and get the clarification from them. My proudest breeding project. If you're talking, Michael, just specifically about BAP, I honestly don't really have one. I can't really say. I don't know. I just have been breeding for so many years. I don't get the excitement for me. I don't know. I mean, it's just I've been breeding for over 13 years. So I mean, I didn't take a hiatus from breeding. I did downsize some, but I never took a hiatus. I've been doing this consistently for that long. And of course, I've had my challenges, which I've shared to all you guys on different occasions. Those are, in a sense, of course, not your proudest moments, but moments for which you can learn from and grow from and try not to repeat. And unfortunately, a lot of those mistakes that were made oftentimes can be avoidable. So yeah, keep the questions coming in, you guys. I definitely encourage it. I will give a few minutes time here in just a few minutes once we kind of cover the topic, and if I will open it up for a couple of questions thereafter if you have anything outside of the topic for me. So hopefully that made sense enough to at least get you guys kind of enticed and motivated to start looking into the program a little bit more in detail based on your market, and maybe create your own little, even though it technically wouldn't be official, but you could always, if you got a Facebook group or, a group of people where you want to have a little friendly competition and create your own awards. I mean, be innovative. It's not like you're going to be able to take that as an official thing if you ever joined a club somewhere else and be able to, turn those in, but at least it can be something there. HC Aqua, hello. What's the hardest fish to breed that you've dealt with? The main thing is not necessarily the induction of breeding, more so as it is the rearing and the raising. So what I mean by that is fry can be very, very small. And I'm not talking about live bears. I'm talking about non-live bearing. And depending on the species that it is, I've seen some very, very small fry. And every time I think I've seen a small fry, I only end up seeing even smaller fry. I would say one of the more tedious ones, not that the induction of spawning is necessarily difficult to do, but the rearing and the raising can be a bit more challenging. And the retrieval and how you go about doing it without causing harm because they are microscopic, they're specks. That would be tetras. Specifically, the emperor tetra, the black emperor tetra, they are a challenging species. I know that there's many other tetras out there that aren't as challenging. For me, I like to learn differently hands-on. So if I'm getting into a species of fish, I want to learn more about them. And how I learn more about them is I'll go ahead and pull. I'll pull them and raise them up. Whether if it's just in a regular state, if it's still in egg form, whatever the case might be, I'll go ahead and basically incubate and I'll raise them up to an appropriate size to then, BAP or whatever I plan on doing with the fish. All right, let's see. So as far as the species for which, without going through all of them, I've turned in a lot of HAP as well, which, like I said, I will cover the plant aspect of the program in a future live stream. But I want to say after Saturday, I'll be at 20 for the year. And on average, our club will yield, since about 2010, as the higher individual for the year, if I remember my statistics right around 24, 25 species on average. So some lower, some higher. Obviously came up with an average there. And the most going dated back, like I said, was 79 in 1 year through our club. My goal for this year was 40, which is a very aggressive goal. Unfortunately, I'm not going to hit 40 because realistically, by the time I get that last post hatch in, I would need it ideally by September to get all the information in time to go ahead and BAP it, and that's even pushing it. So literally by, honestly, next month, based on what I'll be turning in for this Saturday and based on what I'll still end up tentatively turning in, I had it written down. And as you can see here, I'll just show you guys how crazy. This is only a fraction of the notes I keep. So I have binders like this and clipboards all over my fish room. I got all kinds of notes. I need to get more organized. I want to say I should be between 25 and 30. So a goal is a goal. I mean, that's what you strive to achieve. Of course, you can always surpass your goal. But for most of us, I mean, if we come close to a goal, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, hooray, hey, I did a decent job. Most of these things that I'm breeding are not live bears. The majority of them are non-live bear, and they're actually quite difficult species to breed. I enjoy the challenge. Now, next year, like I said, there's only so much availability depending on what species you have. And the room, if that was my sole focus, having 100, 110 active systems going, I mean, if I really wanted to do something, if I just stuck with a lot of different live bears, different species of live bears, and easier type of fish to breed, 40 would have been an easy goal for me. I'm not trying to come off arrogant in any way. I could have well exceeded 40 because I know my comfort levels and what I can breed and what what works and what doesn't work, that type of stuff. I don't want to go into details because, like I said, the last live stream I talked about that. You can look at my videos if you want to know. If you're newer here to the or to my channel, you can definitely check it out. I've talked about a lot of different tips and tricks when it comes to live cultured foods, as far as induction of spawning, different things that you can use as far as triggering them to spawn. A lot of different stuff there I've already covered, either through live streams or through other videos. Yeah, and it's unfortunate for certain individuals I see here in the chat. Like Red Dirt Cichlid says, sadly, no fish clubs here. I do encourage you guys to go check out Scott over at King and Queen Cichlids. He actually started his own club, and I definitely suggest that you check out his channel. I would encourage you guys to actually check it out if you haven't checked out King and Queen Cichlids. If one of your moderators don't mind actually dropping a link, he doesn't know that I'm doing this, and I know that they're coming up on 1,000 subscribers, and I look forward to the opportunity to actually be able to meet Scott and talk to him in person someday. Just a very down to earth, genuine guy with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in the hobby. So I definitely recommend that you guys check him out. Thank you, Jeff, for dropping the link. Well, yeah. So, what else was I going to mention on that? I covered the gist of it. Any other questions on that, or we can just move on at this point to general Q&A? I appreciate you guys' patience. I know a lot of you guys do wait until after the topic, and I really, really do appreciate it. I find out of a lot of live streams I've been a part of and seen. What I've noticed here, especially with the members that are active here in chat, that you guys really do a phenomenal job with that. So 2 thumbs up for you guys. Staying on topic and encourage each other to stay on topic. I definitely appreciate it. My mind can wander quite easily. My memory isn't the greatest anymore. If you guys were hopped on here about an hour ago when I started, I couldn't even pronounce one of the species of a goodiad, which is a tongue twister. But all right. So yeah, I mean, at this point, I just kind of leaving it up to you guys where the ball's in your court. I mean, if you guys wanna come up with a specific topic that you would like to talk about for a couple of minutes, I'm all for it. Dank Tank said Jeffrey has been a good mod today. Jeff Rose said, "Do you even mod, Dank?" All right, how about we do this until one of us here can come up with a topic. How long have you guys been actively engaged on the YouTube platform in this niche, as far as aquarium related community, fish keeping? Dank said, "Ask Jeremy, he's made me a mod twice already." Yep. Don't know what it was with you, Dank, but you kept banning people. Red Dirt Cichlid said 2 years. Bob says 2. What is the first species you bred? I will get to that, Michael. Let's see. Have you ever done a dirted tank? I will get to that as well. So Only got 2 responses, 2 years. I've been making videos for 3 months. When someone says soft water or hard water, are they just talking about pH or also KH? I will get to that as well. It's a great question. Been following YouTube channels for about 2 years. So I would say the average here would be about 2 years then. So let me ask you this. The ones that said 2 years, was there a certain video that sparked your interest? Because I know a lot of you guys have been in the hobby for a long time. Was there a certain video, a certain creator? Was there somebody or a live stream, whatever it was that kind of brought you into the community? If there was a poll taken, I mean, there's hundreds upon hundreds of individuals and thousands of individuals are within the overall fish or aquarium related community, whether if that's fresh or marine type of environments. But it would be interesting to see what kind of turn one's attention over to the overall community. Thanks, a year and a half. Found Joey first, then Bob, and then Corey. Right on. Let's see. As far as the problem that you got to find an answer to, right on. I found Corey, Bob, and you about the same time. Very cool. HC Aqua said 1 year. Less than a year, saw George Farmer and had to follow. Mr. D said, right on. Very interesting. So a few different sources there for which tied into the same community. Been fish keeping my whole life. I'd say John, KG Tropicals, and Corey and Lucas. I decided to start a page. Right on. Started breeding fish before there was the internet. Only books back then, but I'm just getting back into it. Very cool. I found DIY first. Right on. Very interesting. So a lot of diversity there when it comes to feedback. So it's not like the same, and that's what I enjoy to see. I mean, there is a couple of similarities there, but it's cool to see that there's some diversity in that too that ultimately led back to the same community. I'm doing that intentionally because I just want to show my respect for you guys here in the community, where you can kind of decipher between really strong supporters of the community. And I don't want to go into anything outside of that, but we ultimately are all here to try to support and encourage one another. I mean, that would be my hope. That's why I even take the time to put out videos on the platform, is to encourage, inspire, and try to educate. Red Dirt Cichlid said DIY did help pull me in as well. Right on. How you doing, Candy? Thanks for joining us. Dank Tank said co-op got me into the community, but first videos I watched were We Shall Not Speak. Let's see here. DIY got me back in. Right on. All right. So very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, you guys. So a couple of questions here in regards to topics. So I'm going to scroll back up. Try to find them. Had some good questions. Just need to find it now. All right. So HC Aqua said, when someone says soft water or hard water, are they just talking about pH, KH, or GH, or a combination of all of those? So for me, when I talk and refer to alkaline, which is harder water, versus more acidic, which is softer water. So what constitutes acidity? Is it 6 pH? Is it 7 neutral pH below? For me, when I'm looking at a range based on, this is where it can get quite difficult if you go off from what the internet tells you. This is where real hands-on practical experience and knowing the locality, specifically if you're bringing in a fish from the wild, is knowing what the locality requirements are. And you can generally obtain that information based on the source for which you're obtaining the fish. At least I would hope. I mean, that's the whole basis behind one should even go out and collect, is to understand the chemistry. I know for me that would be more important than the actual fish in hand. But with that being said, there is certain localities, depending on the regions and where you're at, where the water can be very, very acidic, well under 6, even some locations under 5. But here in captivity, so things, especially here in the States, even abroad, are going to be typically within a similar range unless they have been adjusted for whatever reason. So I try to keep everything a neutral and above. So even if I'm keeping stuff that requires a quote unquote more soft water or a soft pH, such as certain species of shrimp and even some fish, is it still right around that 6.8 to 7 range? The majority of our stuff that we breed is conditioned, as I've talked about before, and that's even listed on the website, the exact parameters, so you guys know if you're ordering fish from us to be able to adapt that to your water to make it as much of an ease as possible. So I try to lay out as much information as far as water chemistry so you guys know that stuff before you even end up ordering it and receiving it, so you can go ahead and acclimatize it appropriately. Because the main thing for me, and it should be for anybody, is to ensure that stuff is able to be acclimatized with ease without causing stress. That could be anywhere from 7.5 to 8.2, 8.3. So again, there's a range there. But when you fall in certain ranges, it doesn't change too much between that 7.5 to 8.3 range. There isn't that big of a difference based on the alkalinity. Now, when you start dipping down, then that's where things can change quite a bit. So following up now as far as talking about general hardness and carbonate hardness, theoretically, your general hardness and your TDS will be similar in range. It's not going to be exact, but it will be similar. So your carbonate or your KH or your bicarbonate is your buffer. So if I add 1 pound of crushed coral in order to increase my bicarbonate hardness, if I'm breeding shrimp, crayfish, snails, even live bears, guppies, some plecos, there's different species that do require a certain amount of buffer in order to get your carbonate hardness or your KH up to an appropriate level. Going back to the Caridina species, which require a more neutral pH. So a neutral, if you have an RO system, so a reverse osmosis with the DI, which is the most important. That's your deionization, drawing all the minerals basically out of the water where you're going to have 0 TDS. If you check the pH, your pH is going to be 7. With an RO DI unit, should be at 7, 6.8 to 7, with a TDS as close to 0 as possible. Then what you would do is you will want to remineralize your overall general hardness. So your GH, not your KH. So with certain Caridina species, in order for them to thrive and breed successfully and to have a good yield, you want to have basically 0 to 1, ideally, I would say closer to 0 carbonate hardness. So you would use something such as a remineralizer, which we have most of that stuff on hand anyways. I don't carry it through the website, but there's different GH remineralizers out there. And what's nice is when you remineralize the water, If you're doing just top offs, the minerals are still going to be within that water, even through evaporative means. So when you do top offs, you can just use whatever ratio you're doing. If it's just RO, if you're using half tap, half distilled, whatever that balance is to get to the appropriate level. I try to keep the GH with those anywhere between 100 and 120 for those specific shrimp. Again, you want to look at locality. You want to look at the area for which you're obtaining them and see where they're thriving, where they're coming from, because they may have been conditioned over generations to be able to withstand different water chemistry and water parameters. So that's where fluency and consistency really comes in, to make it ease for everybody, for you as the keeper of them, for the livestock. You want to provide as least amount of stress across the platform. So hopefully that answers that for you. All right, where's the other question here? First species. What is the first species I bred? Well, unintentional. When I was younger, I couldn't tell you. But about 14 years ago, as I've shared before, would be your Neocaridina davidii. So different variations or varieties of shrimp. That would be the first one. Dank Tank said, have I ever done a dirted tank? I'm not a huge fan of dirted tanks. I would definitely follow the Wallstead method if you're going to do it and be successful with it. Really isn't much else to point out on that. At least get some inspiration there to try to do it right. Because if you do it wrong from the beginning, you're going to make your life very miserable. So get as much understanding and knowledge literature-wise. I would definitely look at Dinah Wallstead. I would look at a lot of old literature and not just look at what you see on the internet. Really get a good understanding to ensure that you want to get into doing a dirted tank. Is that the appropriate thing for you? Let's see. We got Vi in the house. How you doing, buddy? HC Aqua said it's confusing because when people say soft water, I think they're usually talking about lower pH, but when they say hard water, I think they're talking about GH. That's why I don't pay attention to, and hopefully after I broke that down, it makes a little bit more sense. So just because your general hardness or your TDS, that's why I just don't base off from TDS. I mean, TDS can come and go. I mean, I can have 150 TDS with or close to that with no carbonate hardness. So my KH could be completely different. So you want to, there's so many things that go into that too, that can affect pH and whatnot. But the main thing for me is just consistency, is understanding your pH, understanding your KH, and understanding your GH. And even certain nitrates have a contributing factor when it comes to breeding, believe it or not. I will be most likely, I might even actually do an article talking about certain nitrate levels and the differences I've seen, even with nitrates, and increase of production on certain species of fish. Sorry about the dog in the background. Mr. D said, so I'll be getting a 20 long this Saturday for antlers with live plants. How long should I wait before adding fish? Anytime before you add any fish, I would ensure that it's cycled in order to get the quote-unquote instant cycle. Even though for me, a well-seasoned tank is about 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years solid. Let that beneficial bacterium and so forth grow within your ecosystem in general. But to be appropriate enough for the fish, if you have some sort of seed and media, I've covered that in video and I've talked about it. But if you've heard the term seed and media, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you need me to, I can go a little bit more into that. However, if you're able to help kind of jumpstart the nitrogen cycle by using some form of seed and media from an existing system, that's what I would recommend doing. And I've done it the instant. I mean, I've never had issues. I mean, if I need to, I have enough seed and media on hand where I know it's not going to cause any stress. The easiest thing for me is I have so much volume of water. I could literally take 75% water from one of my systems and put it into 3 or 4 smaller systems and then use seeded sponges, go ahead and add them in, and boom, you're done. Same thing with the beneficial bacteria that's being housed within the substrate. I mean, beneficial bacteria and certain bacteriums that are beneficial for your ecosystem, nitrifying bacteria can be housed in many different places within your tank, not just in the substrate. It's really all throughout that ecosystem, depending on what you have in there. My name is V, Jeremy. It's all good, though. Okay. I'll try to remember that. Thanks for the clarification. Sponge filter in a Placo tank, that's just there for an example. As long as you're not removing all of the beneficial bacteria from an existing system, then yes, you are okay. So if you have a dual sponge on a 20 long, that's, and I've done this plenty of times, I'll ultimately not over filter, but what I'll do is I'll basically go up to the next stage. So instead of using more of a nano sponge for, let's say, a 10-gallon tank, you bump it up to the next size. Why I like the duals is because what you can do is you can basically rotate. You can take that off, put it on another dual or even on a single, and then you can take the one that isn't seated, plop it back in the first tank that you're removing it from. Hopefully this is somewhat making sense. And now you essentially can then get that nitrogen going within the system. Theoretically, I would recommend that you wait 48 hours. So sooner the better would always be my advisement, is to get things, let them settle down. And this is where common sense really comes in. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had over the years with individuals reaching out, especially that I've been putting out video on the platform, and people respect the fact that I go into quite a bit of detail, especially through email. I try to make as much time as I can to educate. That's the most important thing. If you were here in person, I would spend hours with you. That's just the way I am. That's in my nature. Is I enjoy to teach. I enjoy to be able to express as much knowledge that I can in order to see other people be successful. And one thing that I've just been able to do over the years is ensure that thrivability is there for whatever fish I'm keeping. And that's understanding the common sense and the basics behind reading numbers, is knowing the numbers in your system. The numbers don't lie. That is the science behind that little ecosystem that you're keeping. So get yourself a test kit. Just don't look at it visually with your eye. Is get either a liquid test kit or the test strips, whatever you feel comfortable with, and ensure that you're checking those parameters. And as long as you have more or less, the easiest way I can put it is if those tests are showing 0 ammonia, 0 nitrite, and I recommend anywhere on a low end of 5 to 10 to 35 parts per million of nitrate, and general hardness, carbonate hardness, and pH, and chlorine, so on and so forth, will also be typically in there on the test. But I'll be more concerned there, especially if you're dealing with a little bit hardier species, is those 3 first ones that I recommended. When people say I have no nitrates, chances are you're going to end up having a recycle in your system. That's why I always recommend. I don't care what anybody says. They can talk to me until they're blue in the face. I will disagree wholeheartedly. I've seen this firsthand when I've tried to maintain zero nitrates in the system from a test, and you're just going to have more issues. If you're reading the test appropriately, you should have some sort of nitrates in the system. And again, the ammonia, the nitrite, and on the low end for me is 5 parts per million, 5 or 10 of nitrates, and then up to like 35, 40 parts per million. And then when you start kind of getting up there, then that will teach you and train you, hey, as far as repetition, how should I be going about doing maintenance on this system, that type of stuff. So all right. So any other questions, you guys? Hopefully I addressed the ones here since the topic. I encourage you guys to check it out, the topic. I will be editing and re-uploading this the first of next week. So just keep that in mind. If you try to go back and click on this link, it's not going to be listed. I need time to process, time to edit, and get my other ones I've already done that are still in queue to go ahead and re-upload. So a lot of this stuff I've talked about in great detail. We have about 250 videos, which is quite a few here on the platform. I'm sure you can find something there with more in-depth information on some of the things that we've talked about. So I'm going to scroll here through chat, make sure I didn't miss nothing. No, it doesn't look like I missed anything. Yeah, I'll give it a couple of minutes here. I know that there's always a 20 or 30-second delay in chat, so I want to give enough time. If there's any last question, I'm going to have to binge watch them. I apologize in advance as far as the videography. When I first started, they are painful to watch. But yeah, so my biggest thing is as long as the information can come across. That's the most important thing, is that the information is there, that you can learn something from it. 182s are doing excellent. They've almost tripled in size. So, yep. Mr. D said info is all that matters. I concur with you. Unfortunately, the internet doesn't look at it that way, specifically YouTube. They're more concerned about entertainment. But yeah, so put one of my L182s on Instagram tonight. He is a big boy. I'll have to check that out, Jeffro. I haven't been on Instagram in a little bit. I keep saying that, you know. It really is the most underutilized thing. If you guys want to start getting into doing anything, just do Instagram. I mean, it's like the easiest form out there. I mean, it literally is. And they are expanding certain areas as far as live TV and live streaming and stuff like that they're trying to adapt. They're just trying to keep up, with other platforms like YouTube, and ultimately, they're the competition's always going to be there, unfortunately, which I think is a good thing. It keeps people engaged, keeps people on their toes, especially with social media. Outside, I feel it just get kind of stagnant if there isn't new things being added. And anybody that has put time into learning and understanding YouTube, which I have honestly put hours upon hours, actually, why I haven't done a lot of stuff here on the platform, as I've been educating myself a lot with YouTube. If I plan on taking this, not that I haven't been taking it serious, but want to do more with it in the future. So I've been challenging myself there, trying to get myself a lot more educated with understanding and learning the changes before they end up being announced. So I try to stay in the know, because a lot of these content creators will end up putting out information, a few months after the fact, and it's like, yeah, it's already been out for 2 or 3 months. But yeah. Let's see. I seen that. What he like? I seen that. What is he like? 3 inches. If you're talking about, if you, oh, you're talking to the Jeffro. I don't mind hanging out with you guys. This is why I go live. I mean, my kids, they're not back to school yet. Obviously, we're in the middle of August, so they'll be going back here to school in a couple of weeks. But as you guys know, I got 4 kids between the ages of 3 and 13. In my youngest, I devote my time all day, of course, stay engaged as much as I can with them. But let alone having the little one. But with that being said, this is why my time right now, until they get back in the school, and it's even difficult with my youngest during the day to bring you a live stream in the morning like I used to do, or in the afternoon. That's why I just got to kind of work, unfortunately, with my schedule. Right now, that's life. I mean, when you have kids and you got a family, that's the most important thing. So, let's see. Mine are chunky too. You're talking about your Plecos, right on. Love those guys. Probably my fave looking Pleco out of any of them. They are pretty unique Pleco. I will agree with that. Uh, 54 Punchy said mine are starting to get chunky too. Still small, maybe an inch and a half. Love those L1E2s. Does anyone know how to change YouTube name without space? Without space? VB_23. Clarify for me, VB23. Try to elaborate a little bit. I want to ensure that I'm understanding your question correctly. But yeah, I can address that for you. Like, make it VB23, and realize too that YouTube will only allow you to create a new. I don't know the last time that you generated. I know Michael can contest to this because he's done it now multiple times. I'm not sure why. I want to say every 4 months. They only allow you to do it every 4 months. So just keep that in mind. If you end up changing it, you won't be able to change it again for 4 months. Is it 3 months? 90 days? Okay. All right. So give me just a second here. And took a long time for Michael to get back to Mike High Plecos, yeah. Mile high plecos. Yep. So you don't want to space. Every 90 days you get to change 3 times. Yep. Never mind, you'll keep it VB23. All right. Now I was trying to think how I've never had anybody ask me that question. I mean, it tells me that you've been in there and you've tried to do it, and as long as you follow the, because I could show you where to go to change the name, but that's not what you're asking. You're just wondering as far as the space. But if you're going to keep it anyways, I guess it's a moot point. All right. Any other questions at all, you guys? We've been going for an hour and a half, so if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Because I am honestly lost of topics. I've covered so many different topics. I have ideas and plans what I want to do in the future, but that, again, doesn't really apply and matter right now for this live stream. Have a great night, Candy. Tell Caleb and the hubby we said hello. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, you guys. I want to thank you guys very much for hanging out on another impromptu live stream. I apologize that the notifications, not that it really matters because we know how that works. But yeah, just make sure that you, if you guys enjoy this content, you go ahead and you hit the subscribe button. And it's not an obligation, but I definitely encourage you guys, if you want to see more educational content coming out here in the future, and to get any notifications for future live streams, to hit that notification bell and select all for all notifications. And with that being said, you guys, as always, stay encouraged. Keep on keeping on. Happy fishing. And we'll talk to you guys right back here on the next one.